item, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you. The first item is the minutes of this committee's meeting held Monday, November 30th. The recommendations to approve those minutes.
Move minutes. Okay, second. All in favor? We are. And your pen doesn't work.
The next item on the agenda, with the change as just noted, is the interim homeless shelter status update. The recommendations that Council continue to urge the provincial government through the Ministry of Housing and Social Development to commit funding to the development of the Tri-Cities permanent emergency shelter and transitional housing at 3030 Gordon.
Okay, so we have staff giving a report on that. So please, Mr. McIntyre.
This, Madam Chair, I'm just going to provide a brief context statement and then turn it over to Verna Semitek, our acting social planner, and Sandy Burpee, who've been working closely together over the past few months. This is a status report that's in front of the committee.
And it's just before you start, I was reading this, and I always thought that we did have like transition housing on this site. Do we not? Like permanent homes for a short period of time, 6 months or a year? I thought we went from shelter beds into transitional housing. It doesn't seem to reflect that in here, so if you can address it when you're... Thank you.
As I was mentioning, this is a status report on the council direction from July of this year, where staff was authorized and directed to work with the Tri-Cities Homelessness Task Group to develop an interim emergency housing shelter strategy. There will be a gap in service in the Tri-Cities as of March 31st, 2011, with the colder weather program that's operating in a number of churches, places of worship right now. This interim shelter was to look at options that could be in place from March 31st, 2011, until a permanent emergency shelter and transition housing could be built on 3030 Gordon Street. So what I want to do is turn it over to Verna Semitek and Sandy Burpee and can provide some highlights in the report on the work of the...
Are those microphones working back there?
Should be.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. As Mr. Innes said, this report is forwarding to Council the results of the work of the Tri-Cities Homelessness Task Group, working with City staff over the last few months in attempting to identify an option for an interim shelter for the Tri-Cities, that interim period being between the end of the cold wet weather program in March 2011 and the time at which the permanent shelter at 3030 Gordon might be ready for occupancy. It is anticipated that perhaps that time period or that gap may be anywhere from a year to 2 years. So the Tri-Cities Homelessness Task Group has been working hard at identifying those options. Those options have been identified according to a set of criteria that the facility subcommittee of the Homelessness Task Group identified. Location criteria being the same as for the permanent shelter, looking for a space that would be 2,600 square feet with a commercial kitchen facility, several washrooms and showers. A range of options were reviewed, ranging from spaces in city-owned community and recreational facilities, commercial industrial spaces, the Riverview lands, rental halls, and vacant school buildings. Unhappily, none of the options emerged as being feasible, as meeting the criteria that the Tri-Cities Homelessness Task Group had set for an interim facility, and staff and the Homelessness Task Group concur on a conclusion that this simply underscores the urgency in the city moving forward on being persistent in its advocacy with the provincial government for funding for the permanent shelter. And Mr. Burpee is the chair of the Homelessness Task Group, and his report from his committee is attachment 2 on your report and is here to answer any questions of substance.
Welcome, Sandy. Good to see you. Go ahead. Did you want to give a presentation or just ask questions?
He's open to
questions. Sandy, you didn't want to give a presentation?
Not at this time, Madam
Okay,
Chair.
that's good.
I'm happy to ask any questions that or answer other that Verna would like to pass on to me.
Thank you. I just wanted to give you the opportunity. Selena, go ahead.
Thank you. I want to hats off to the Homelessness Task Group. This was not an easy undertaking, and I want to reiterate that this is a volunteer community group made up of local community members, volunteers, as well as professionals. And I was sort of curious if we had to do it ourselves, this undertaking, I'm assuming it would have cost taxpayers a fair penny. So I think we need to acknowledge the hard work of this group and the resource it brings to the community. I'm glad that I'm not surprised by the results of this. We sort of knew that was the case going into it, but I think we needed to do our due diligence as a city to when we speak with the province, that they know that we have done everything we can to look for something as an interim, and that there really is nothing viable. I think it's important, and I'd actually like to amend the motion, that we also include sending this report to our local MLAs, because really it's the province at that level. I'd also like to send it to Minister James Moore. He did say that if there is a project that there is some funding for, that he might be able to help. This might be a little bit more of an impetus to, I don't know if there's any federal dollars, but I think it would be helpful for him to know what the local landscape, what's happening in this community, and maybe he has some ideas or some resources that he can tap into. So I'd like to amend that we include those folks to receive this report.
Okay, I would second that. So, because we're both in favor, if you would like to add the MLAs and MPs, I don't think that could harm at all. I would like to ask Mr. Burpee if you have seen the Langley shelter, the brand new Langley shelter.
Madam Chair, no, I haven't. I've heard about it, but I have not yet had the opportunity to tour it.
Mayor Fassbender gave us an invitation to the Housing Committee, but we were unable to get over there before Christmas. I asked him if it would be okay if our council and we went in January when things settled down and everyone went back, and that would be fine. So we'll make a formal time to go and perhaps have Mr. Burpee accompany us.
I also went to the Regional Steering Committee on Homelessness last week. They had all the different groups. And I think the Langley story is a very interesting one, and would like to actually find out a little bit more about how did they make that happen. My understanding is that there were many different community partners that they had to bring to the table, a little bit different than our Homelessness Task Group. So they were able to get some support from one of the other Langleys. I forget which Langley. One of them contributed financially and one of them contributed land. But they also had other groups, and I don't know if it was their business community or what, but I think there's some real interesting information that's out there that might help us make a stronger case to move this project forward.
Well, if you remember a few weeks ago, I reported on their shelter, and it sounds ideal. If I had glasses, thank you. I forgot my purse. Thank you. We share everything here, almost. It's just her clothes are a little big for me. It's in the two Langleys did get together on it, and it's being run by the Salvation Army. And it's a $15 million facility. And they have something that apparently is quite an anomaly, and that's a 34-year operating agreement. And this is Minister Coleman's riding, and I think he was quite instrumental in helping and moving this along. So kudos to him for recognizing that this shelter was sorely needed in the Langleys, and maybe we can look at it and do some cookie cutter stuff and save ourselves a lot of work and that in ours. It's apparently a state-of-the-art shelter. It's got geothermal heat. It's on less than 1 acre, and it's gold LEED standard. And as I reported before, it's close to the Langley bypass. It has 25 transition apartments, and 13 for ladies and 12 for men. It's a 150-seat dining room with a teaching kitchen, so people can gain some skills there as well. There's hot meals served once a day, and they have 30 emergency beds, 100 cold weather mat beds. I think it just sounds so good that I really want to go and look at it. So hopefully I will make arrangements in January and we can all take a look. But I think we should, in our motion where you've got, we've asked it to go to local MLAs and James Moore, I think we should acknowledge Minister Coleman that for his state-of-the-art facility, and that we are looking forward to touring it, and hopefully that will be the kind of facility that we can see soon in the Tri-Cities area. So if I could have you second that.
Second that.
Okay, all in favor, approved, carried. So the recommendations as amended.
I'll move them.
Second. We're done.
May?
Did you have? Sorry, all the mics are on, so. Okay.
I guess through to staff is we've had this report on the interim solution, and there, as the report says, there is no viable option for an interim shelter that will end in the 2011 season, and I don't expect us to have a permanent. I would like to, but I don't see it. So I guess through to Sandy or staff, what do you think is our options carrying on? Do we carry on with the cold wet mat program, or do you see any other options that the Homeless Task Force has at its disposal, or thoughts at its disposal about a mat program or interim shelter after 2011?
Councillor, I believe that the cold weather mat program continuing is a viable option, provided that there is a firm commitment and hopefully money already spent in the way of developing a permanent shelter. I think to go back to the neighborhoods yet again for rezoning for another year or two to go with the MAP program would be very difficult to sell without a guarantee that yes, the permanent solution is in sight, it's underway, it'll be ready at a certain time, and that claim becomes believable if there is action underway, ideally even shovels in the ground by that point.
Thank you, Sandy. I appreciate that. And I guess the other comment I would have through to staff is that while we're waiting for the provincial government to come up with funding for this, I guess what I would like to see is for us to continue the process where we can. I would say, let's move forward on the rezoning of the land. Let's put those blocks in place so that when the funding does come, we don't have to go through all these processes and delay the issue. So my recommendation or thought would be that we continue the process along through the rezoning and other so that when the province does have us, that we are now shelf ready to go with our end of the deal. And that's what I would like to see happen. Thank you.
Mr. McIntyre has a comment.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And to address Councillor Asmussen's questions, if I could, yeah, I think that's where we're at right now, and that thought's been, we've been talking about that. The idea of an interim shelter, that was something from the start when we first went out with the cold wet weather MAP program, and I think we all can remember that public hearing, and but also recognizing the permanent shelter may take a while to materialize, and unfortunately that seems to be the case. Trying to find something to fill that midterm. I know we had conversations with Sandy and others in the task force around that. We've knocked on every door. We've been really explored that, pursued that, and it just doesn't seem feasible, unfortunately. So at this point, I guess we're at is we need to redouble our efforts on pursuing the permanent shelter facility, and I think the city has been. You know, going back to the UBCM conference, Mayor Stewart, a couple council members, and we've got ongoing communication with the minister around that. And I think at this point we can start looking at other steps to make that more likely to proceed. For example, seeking money to get into that development phase. Maybe the city steps up and looks at rezoning the property unilaterally. So there's a number of steps I think we can do to keep the spotlight on this thing and also keep it moving forward. So we'll take that as direction and continue to work with the task force and come back, because we're all, I think, quite focused on seeing this thing go forward.
Thank you, Mr. McIntyre. And that's what I'm hoping that we can do, because I think whatever we can do to make, if the permanent solution isn't ready for 2011, that when, to Sandy's comment, that we have showing the public that we've crossed off some of our I's and T's. We're not there yet, but we've crossed off some stuff, and we have the momentum moving that way. So thank you, Mr. McIntyre.
Just my comment on that, I am not prepared to rezone those properties permanently, and I think if you go out to the general public, that is not going to be a welcome change. I do think we have to deal with it soon, but I think it could be probably March, right after the Olympics, when things have sort of settled down and maybe Minister Coleman is prepared to move forward. But we will keep our eye on the ball. This is so important to every member of this council. Mayor Stewart.
Yes, and further the previous council comments, we have been in touch regularly with the minister, corresponded with him several times, partly once in congratulations for the opening of his of the facility in his riding, and commenting that we in Coquitlam Council want to come out and look at it because it undoubtedly shows many of the same features that we need here in Coquitlam and that he acknowledges we need. A very respectful and continued and persistent communication with the minister and his staff, I think, is needed at this point, and it has been ongoing. Will continue, of course. I agree, though, that we want to make sure we remove the barriers that are still in place for when the funding does come. And one of the barriers is the design of the building, of course, the zoning of the building. I don't think the zoning will be a time barrier because there's no design of it. There's a bunch of other elements. So I think we need to be sitting down regularly as well with BC Housing and with potential operators and finding those solutions so that when this funding does come, we have to take the minister at his word. He said this is a high priority project, and I believe he acknowledges that and will remain committed to that. But everyone needs to get this. We need to have a building under construction at the very least in 2 years. It has to be, to me, that's absolutely imperative. I think we should have a building open in 2 years, and that should be our goal.
Thank you, and I totally concur. Hearing no comments, we'll move on.
Madam Chair, with your direction, move on to item 4 rather than returning to item 2.
Right, okay, we're hoping, just, excuse me, did Councillor Sikora say he was on his way, or? Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll go to item 4.
Item 4 concerns residential lot and unit capacity and yield in Northeast Coquitlam. The recommendations that the committee receive this report for information.
Move receipt.
Second.
I have a comment.
I do too. Go ahead.
I want to thank staff very much. I think the chart is I just want to point out is what's most useful. It just helps me as a decision maker just sort of keep track of what's going on, and because there's a lot of stuff happening, and keeping track of what we've approved, and I hope that we'll get these at least quarterly or something, or especially if there's been a lot of approved projects, then it sort of just gives us a sense of where we're at in the overall plan. That's really the only comment. I just want to keep seeing this chart.
Thank you. My comment is the paragraph at the top of page 3, where you say a modest increase in the number of large single-family residential lots being developed in the area versus small, and then an increased interest in townhouse development. So, have we gained any how many large lots have we gained over what we expected?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Perhaps I'll direct that to either Rob or to Andrew, who worked most directly on the report.
Overhead Creek.
Yes, Madam Chair. Andrew Young here. On the in the chart that is attached to the report, so that would be page.
Oh, sorry.
Page 4.
Yeah.
Top.
And if you look, for example, under the Lower Hyde Creek Village Neighborhood Plan, you'll see under large village single family, what is endorsed in the neighborhood plan is 214 large village single family lots.
Right.
And what we're seeing in terms of the actuals, coupled with our estimates for remaining development, it suggests that we're going to see 260 lots of the large village single family type developed in that neighborhood. And also, for example, if you were looking at the Smiling Creek neighborhood plan, at the bottom you'd see the large village single family. The neighborhood plan has
endorsed 300 lots, and our estimates at this time are that there will be approximately 340 to 345. So yes, there is a modest increase in the number of large village single-family lots that we're seeing, but that's also, just to respond briefly, we're seeing a response by the development community for, they're responding, pardon me, to an increased interest in the market for those large single-family residential lots.
That interests me, yeah. And so we're virtually then going to end up almost par from where we were in our planning, I would think, into home sites, correct?
Madam Chair, that's correct. If you look at the numbers for...
And I have to apologize, I didn't know there was a chart on the back. I scooted through this and then didn't look at the chart. I was looking at these numbers here.
We love charts.
Pardon?
We love charts.
Yes, I know. You're planners and you love process too. Yes.
Some of us love charts too.
Yes, well, I don't. But.
So yes, Madam Chair, those numbers, as you've noted, there's not a significant amount of change, except insofar as the Smiling Creek neighborhood plan is concerned. There is an increased number of projected townhomes, street-oriented village homes, or conventional townhomes that you'll see. So instead of 685 that's endorsed in the plan, we're showing approximately 800 is what we're estimating. And that too is also responding to the increased level of interest that we're seeing from the developers who again are responding to market demand.
I think this becomes a difficulty when we've done all the neighborhood plans and the neighborhoods are expecting 632 and they're going to end up with 800. So you have a comment, Mr. McIntyre?
If I could, Madam Chair, a couple comments. First to Councillor Robinson's mention a few moments ago about the monitoring and tracking of this. What we're hoping to do is do sort of this sort of level of report annually, but what we'll do is with the application, each application coming forward, because I think that's really where the questions have sprung from, if they're applying for an OCP amendment or rezoning. So how does this relate to the neighborhood plan? I think that's a really excellent question to ask at that time. So you'll see that in the individual reports as they come forward, but we like to do this year-end review, sort of just, sort of taking stock of where we're going. And that's also helpful, I think, too, and then getting a sense of the types of housing. Is it large lot, single family, is it small lot, townhouses? I think we'll see various trends emerging and changing over time. I think it's helpful for us. The other comment I'd make around the between the vision of a neighborhood plan and the realization of a neighborhood. And as much as we like to think that through our planning we can get things nailed down pretty good, it's never 100% precise. And I think you need to allow for some flex in those plans and also in the numbers too. I think it becomes a matter of degree as to if you're getting too far, if you're departing too far from neighborhood plan. But I think there needs to be some flexibility to allow for some movement over time. And I think the numbers we see here, like the bottom line numbers, it's 3.5% over what we would have projected or envisioned the neighborhood plans. And to me, that's well within the range of plus or minus 5%, 10% that you would expect to see between what a neighborhood plan might envision and what actually might materialize. So.
And I agree, except that when it comes to the when it comes to the townhouses, when we go, quite a lot more there. I mean, we have to look at the environmental problems that we have too, more land coverage, blah, blah, blah. So I am concerned about that. I would think that if you could you forward a copy of this to the Northeast ratepayers? Because they were quite interested in, where we are on this, with a note just advising them that, when applications come forward, we'll be comparing numbers. So I'd appreciate that. Do you have anything else?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Reimer?
Thank you.
Reimer,
okay. I looked at this chart and really appreciate the chart. It was excellent to read, and I think this is the information that we were looking for, and so I thank staff very much for putting this together. I was concerned when I saw under the Smiling Creek Neighborhood Plan the street-oriented village home conventional townhousing of 685 under the neighborhood plan, and then 798 total estimated lots and units, which is a difference of 113. And so that really is sort of beyond the 10% mark. And so I'm just wondering if staff has any comment on that particular aspect. I do know that it is related to the market, and but I'm just wondering from a planning perspective if that's of concern. Small single village is shrinking.
Jim? Yeah, Madam Chair, to answer Councillor Reamer's question, what we're also seeing in the chart is a reflection, too, of not just a trend, but also some changes that have been made to the city's zoning bylaw with respect to not necessarily the number of units directly, but in terms of the floor area ratio that is allowed in both the street-oriented village home and conventional town home developments. So while the neighborhood plan, which was adopted in 2005 for Smiling Creek, reflects 685 units. Based on the changes that have been made to the zoning bylaw as adopted by council, what we're seeing here is the actual yields in terms of the numbers of units. So that alone accounts for a significant amount of that increase.
Thank you.
Okay, you're done?
Anything else for Councillor Reid?
Oh,
Councillor
yes.
Adamson and then Councillor Robinson.
Okay. I guess my concern is that we're already sort of making a given that current development trends that we're saying, okay, we'll go to this 3.5%. So we're already saying that from what the plan was, we're going to allow an increase. And I guess my concern always is that the Northeast plan is probably, even what was approved, is probably the most dense neighborhood plan that we're going to have or had planned for in Coquitlam. I guess my question always comes back to make sure about livability. We're going to have people living here for 50, 100 years, and the density. So while the potential is, let's say in Smiling Creek, has gone from 750 to 814, how does that impact the community services from our water, our parks, and the road network and our livability in that area? So that's one other thing I want to keep track on. It's just not the numbers, and we seem to be saying, here are the numbers that were approved in the plan, and you say there's 3.5, and here's the potential. And some developers may say, okay, well, that's where we're going to. The new number is now 1814 rather than 750. But I think we have to be cognizant of the long-term livability of that density in those areas. And those are my comments. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. I do appreciate that this is a living sort of plan. It's going to be fluid. And I just want to be clear, this is a 20-year, by the time all is said and done, it's going to take, what, 20 years? Is that sort of the understanding? So I suspect between now and 2030, it's going to continue to be tweaked and look a little bit different. But I also want to point out that in the Smiling Creek neighborhood plan, the small village single family, the estimate's gone from 520 now down to 434. So it seems like that's where one style of housing might bulk up a little bit, we might see a bit more, another might shrink as well. So it's the balance of all of these pieces. Am I sort of reading this right in terms of what to expect?
Councillor, you're quite right. And things will evolve over time, as you pointed out. Each of these plans is actually a living document, and we see these things actually developed on the ground out there in the field. And you're quite right in pointing out that over the projected development period of 15 to 20 years, we will, in all likelihood, see some additional changes in each of these plans as the developers in turn respond to yet further market changes and changes in demand for different types of homes.
So we really won't know what those numbers are until 2030.
We will continue to monitor them and report them regularly to you.
That's great. Great. Thank you.
Okay, Mayor, did you want to make comments or? Get your light on, Councillor.
They're
All the lights are
on.
Okay.
That's been my problem.
Councillor Reid, did you want any comments more?
Well, no, just one final one. In 20 years from now, it's going to be interesting to see what's going to be the preferred living option for people as society ages. And, you know, Langley did 20 years ago, they prepared for this, and they have a lot of ground-oriented strata homes, and that's, you know, they're full. You can't buy one. They're just, you just can't get enough of those. And we aren't building any of those. So it's going to be interesting to see if that's where we move to in the next 20 years. Anyhow, we're done. Thank you.
Okay, there's a recommendation here. Did you act on it yet or not?
No, we didn't, but we did add that we would send a copy of this wonderful chart onto the Northeast Ratepayers group so that they could see it.
All those in favor, opposed, carried. Next item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next item, which is item 2 in the agenda, concerns the December 2009 update on the Economic Action Plan. We have a presentation by Mr. Wayne Beggs, who's our Manager of Economic Development. The recommendation is that the committee receive this as a progress report on current initiatives and activities related to the implementation of the Economic Action Plan.
Okay, Mr. Beggs, go ahead.
I'd like to thank the Standing Committee for the opportunity to come forward and provide a year-end report outlining the progress towards advancing the Economic Action Plan. But I also want to start by acknowledging the significant body of work accomplished by Rob Innes and his community planning group before my arrival here when I arrived in March. They completed in-depth research and broad community and business engagement and developed a foundation on which to base our economic development plans. Our economic development potential is not the result of one individual working alone on economic development initiatives on behalf of our community. The conditions that will allow economic development to flourish are best achieved when Council and all of our departments contribute to actions that positively impact our community's economic well-being. So I also want to herald the significant work of Joyce Fordyce, our manager, Leisure Services West. She worked with the Express ownership to attract the team back to the city. And so this is an example of work that's being done in other departments to advance economic development in the city. The control we exercise over our local economy largely depends on our ability as a city to communicate the right information about who we are and what values we represent and what potential we harbor. Confirming and projecting our potential to external audiences has been a key focus of our early efforts, and as part of the foundation work completed over the last 9 months, we've crafted and shaped our communications messages to focus on some key economic development themes. I want to take a moment to reflect on some of those themes. We are an innovative city. We are a city that is open to looking forward and positioning ourselves for the next economy. We are a diverse city. Our institutions, our businesses are the place where cultures come together. These qualities combine to make us an exciting city where new things are happening and where untapped potential exists. We are not a bedroom suburb of Vancouver. Rather, we are a diverse and innovative extension of Canada's gateway to the Asia-Pacific economy, a place, a community that sits where cultures meet. We are all of this, and yet we enjoy excellent quality of life. We are close to nature and have mountains and rivers and ravines. As well, we have a vibrant business culture and many companies that reach out to the world with innovative new products and processes. We have QMI, which sells innovative emergency shutoff valves and apparatus to companies like Bombardier. We have ClickToy, which develops a popular video game right here in Coquitlam, which is a favorite among preschoolers and sells around the world. We have LinkSoft, a company that develops advanced information technology solutions for companies like Microsoft. Beyond our initial work to communicate opportunities, other foundation pieces were completed. We've met with organizations, with businesses large and small, and we have listened to the challenges faced. We have facilitated solutions and have provided our businesses with leads to new opportunities. We have pursued work with other departments to pursue additional funds that will ultimately assist with their capital projects and help strengthen our economic development potential. This morning's announcement of $713,000 to upgrade the roof and track at Percy Perry Stadium was an exponent of our collaborative work with Leisure and Parks. It is also important to note that my position now provides an initial point of contact for businesses and business development proposals and opportunities coming to the city. When the city has required examination of economic issues, we have provided information and analysis to council. For instance, we've provided analysis of the impact of this year's Scottish Highland Games and provided context and recommended approach for council's consideration related to the Buy American campaign. Laying the foundation is important. Collaborating with other departments and finding opportunities to build economic development potential from all corners of the organization is important. But the measures we have set and the plan we are pursuing is the true measure of progress over time. And the City of Coquitlam Economic Action Plan has 4 key objectives. They're noted here: capitalizing on transportation infrastructure, supporting business success, building on our cultural diversity to create trade and investment opportunities, and leveraging our community assets to drive investment and job creation. And as I report on the first 6 months of action to address these objectives, I'm pleased to note some early progress in all areas. With regard to capitalizing on transportation infrastructure to create new business opportunities, we've worked hard to establish messaging that points to the importance of transportation as a driver of new economic development potential in the Northeast Metro Vancouver area. We're of course talking about the $4 billion of investment in the Northeast Metro area. That's $4,000 million, and we can talk about which projects I'm including within that, but we're talking everything from the Golden Ears Bridge through to the Evergreen Line. With regard to supporting business success, we are working with businesses. We're hearing their concerns and their challenges and their aspirations. We've been in contact with over 50 local companies and have attended numerous chamber and community functions, and we are identifying opportunities for new development. We've met with potential companies to discuss opportunities in Coquitlam, and we're supporting the city administration as we receive and work with business delegations. With regard to building on our cultural diversity, we're supporting our engagement with opportunities to reach out to our foreign markets. Currently, we're working with Metro Vancouver Commerce as we develop and we've developed an application for funding to advance collaborative efforts with Metro Vancouver Commerce to attract foreign direct investment to our communities. We're working to review and evaluate companies with potential for participation in the Metro Vancouver Commerce 2010 Inbound Investment Initiative. And with regard to leveraging our community assets to drive investment and job creation, our work in this effort has mostly involved informing and promoting with regard to our assets. And those assets include our access to the great outdoors, and some are technological, like QNet. And another asset that we need to get out in front of people is the fact that we have a variety of development opportunities that exist in our city. As we look ahead, we will be completing the final preparation of renewed marketing materials that will be used during the 2010 Winter Olympics. And in February 2010, we'll be participating in hosting inbound companies and will participate in other related events as part of the Metro Vancouver Commerce 2010 Inbound Investment Initiative. In the spring, we will also advance consideration and possible implementation of the Metro Vancouver Commerce Mobile Business Licensing Initiative. We will continue to measure our progress towards achieving the objectives of the Economic Action Plan. This will include analysis of development and business license indicators, employment data and other information sources to assess progress. We plan to have public meetings with local cultural business groups to facilitate economic development and foreign direct investment. We plan to continue implementation of business retention and expansion activities, including a commitment to visit one Coquitlam company every week and to do follow-up calls with at least 2 businesses each week. We'll continue to work with the Mayardville Task Force to explore opportunities to stimulate economic revitalization in this area. And we plan to work with the Chamber of Commerce, School District 43, and Douglas College to develop a local initiative focused on youth entrepreneurship. We'll continue our pursuit of foreign direct investment opportunities through participation in federal and provincial programs. And finally, it is important to note that we remain at the ready to consider and take action on other initiatives or opportunities as we find them. Thank you for the opportunity to provide this year-end report. I would be pleased to respond to any questions.
Okay, any questions? Council Salina.
Thank you. Thank you for this. I think we've been waiting a while to sort of hear sort of what's going on. I particularly like the recognition that we all have an ambassadorship sort of responsibility for drawing in business to our community. That there isn't. It's not like you can hire one person and expect them to, move the whole thing forward. And as I read your report, I was taken back to my own experience as a fundraiser when I was hired in 2005, and the executive director was real clear. She wanted to see some real measurables. And let me tell you, as a fundraiser, there's nothing more vulnerable than measurables, because you actually see it in dollars. Like, it's real easy to identify, like how much came in, didn't meet your targets, you didn't do a good enough job. And I remember being very anxious and saying, this is a business of relationship building as a fundraiser, and similar in this case, I think. And I asked for a 3-year window to demonstrate that we could pull it off. And certainly the first 6 to 8 months was about putting together a plan. And it's frustrating because you're waiting for the numbers, the money, the dough is going to run in, just pour in, and it doesn't. But at some point, you need to, even while you're doing that planning, you still need to have an eye on pulling some of the cash in, because you got to keep things going, and you got to make sure that people see this as a worthwhile investment, even if you don't have all your ducks in a row. You sort of, it's a tricky balance. So I guess what's a bit of frustration is that we don't have anything tangible to hang on to just yet. I do appreciate hearing what the plans are to get there, but at some point, and maybe it is a 3-year window, I'm not quite sure what the window is, we need to be able to see and to identify what are the pieces that say this is a good investment for the city, that this has been a worthwhile investment, that we are reaping the benefits of having somebody in this role moving this forward. And I'm not sure what the milestones are. I guess that's what I'm looking for, some milestones. So can we expect in 6 months to start seeing the dough roll in, a certain number of jobs or a certain number of companies? Like at what point do we get to say this is a good idea? And what's interesting is I was actually just talking to Joanne Granick this weekend about some of the financial challenges they're having, and she said, do you remember 4 years ago when we had that conversation and about starting this whole fundraising plan, a strategic plan for fundraising, and look at where we're at now, that there was something about doing a plan much like what you're doing, and then 4 years out being able to reflect back and say, wow, there's a real focus, and it's sustainable, and it's great, and it's moving forward, and I'm not even there anymore. Someone else is taking it on. So I do appreciate the importance of having a plan, because I think, and you reflect on it here, about lasting outcomes. There's something about short-term gain, but then you can't sustain it, and with a good plan, you can have lasting outcomes. So I fully appreciate it. But I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity to see just a little bit that sort of says, we're moving in the right direction. I think, so the other point I just want to bring on is this idea of getting us all on message, and what sort of strategy you have, because there's 9 of us that sit around this table, there will be 9, and how, for me, it's like, so I need to know, I'm thinking, so what is the message? What are some of the speaking points I can have in my back pocket when I'm out? And I think we all are out there sort of hustling in the community, and we are all ambassadors and talking to people and out in the world. And I would love to have a little sort of laminated card that sort of says, well, we have these kinds of things, and we have QNet, and this is how QNet will benefit your company, because, like you said, you can't do it alone, and it would, if you have a plan for how to get us all speaking the same language in that respect, that would be great too.
Okay.
That's it.
Councillor Reid.
Well, thank you for your report. Economic development to me is probably different than it is to you. I'm a salesman, and this is more on the bureaucratic part of it. To me, I want to see, like Selena, it takes time, and Selena keeps teaching me things that I know, but she puts them with such clarity that I understand. When she asks for measurables, I ask for them, but in a different way. But she's correct, and we don't have many of those yet. Like with Joyce Fordyce, bless her heart, I know that she worked very hard to get the hockey, but I can't really attribute that to just economic development, because I think they wanted us back here. What I can attribute it to is that we took the initiative to redo our physical things in our city, our physical facilities, and they took a look at it. To me, economic development means you go out to community groups. You look at where we've been. I always believe that you can't move forward unless you have some history to move from. And many years ago, in tourism, let's use tourism, we paid the Chamber of Commerce. That's how we actually started a fee for service. Many years ago, they used to have the two cabooses, one at Westwood and one down in Millardville, which I think can be revived again. And the Chamber used them as outlets for all kinds of brochures and maps and information on the cities. And I think we should be doing that again. And I think we should be contracting with the Chamber to do it. Those are our partners. Those are our businesses. I think we can help Douglas College students jump in on that and promote summer jobs in our own city. QNet, I look at it and I don't understand all the technicalities about it, but it seems to be such a great thing, and if you're around IT staff, they're so hyped up about it, you get excited even if you don't know what it does. So I look at places like Burke Mountain. We are building this beautiful village up there, and we are building this whole new area, and we are at the point in time where we can make it something really special. And I would hope that we would be out looking for opportunities that maybe are outside the box that we could attract to moving Burke Mountain forward. One of the things many years ago that was going on, and Councillor Sikora will know much more about this than I, but we had a huge development come forward on a ski hill up there. And then there was going to be a huge development come with the back road into Whistler. I mean, we have to start thinking outside the box onto stuff like that. And now that Mayor Stewart is very busy with our offshore partners and sister cities, maybe there's some kind of a match there. Maybe there's some kind of someone who has the money, the pizzazz, the foresight that's way outside of the box that can come forward and say, yeah, with QNet and this village close to a downtown core, or closer than Whistler is, and a back road and a ski hill, there's got to be opportunities there. There's also got to be opportunities for redevelopment of old Coquitlam. And I'm speaking more of Mayfair lands than of down where I think we've taken a good grasp with Fraser Mills. But in Mayfair, I know as a realtor, I'm in there and I see people who are just holding onto the property and leasing it out and just giving it to people, and they've got acres and acres of blacktop. Maybe there's better uses. Maybe they could be bringing different businesses to me, businesses that have more employees. I want to attract jobs to my city. That's my big thing with economic development. I won't go into Riverview because I think it's the hugest opportunity we will ever have in working collaboratively with the province to build some kind of a huge facility of some sort, hopefully in the healing arts in some way, to those lands, because we have the largest piece of land on this side of the Fraser River in the whole peninsula that it's available for. And the biggest part of it, it's jobs for Coquitlamites in Port Coquitlam and Port Moody. I think we have sites like the Crane site. Now there's an odd little site that it's sitting there and the people are, you know, they really want to develop it. And I think between us and New Westminster, we can actually find some business, maybe something we haven't even thought of yet that would be perfect for that site. So that's the way I look at economic development. And the one thing I agree with Councillor Robinson on for sure is that I would love a piece to have in my back pocket to hand out. And I would love to have just population and where our strengths are. We did a piece on I believe we did an employment piece, did we not, Mr. McIntyre? On where our strengths are in the employment, what kind of talent we have in our city and where we can go. And those are the things that I think I need to see. And I need to see something that I can have in my hands that we 9 of us, soon to be, can go out and use to say, yes, I think you need to come and talk to Mr. Beggs because you have something that we in this city are interested in, and let you be the puzzle person who can put them together. And that's where I look at economic development going. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Adamson.
Thank you very much, Wayne. I think this is a good first report. I think, you know, since you've been here and this is a 6 month getting up to speed and getting involved in economic development, I believe that economic development takes time to make connections and start to build relationships. I think the biggest thing we're looking at, has been talked about from the business community, is retention and attraction. And I like the idea from what I heard from you about weekly meetings with different business, callbacks. I think that's very important. We've had businesses just leave Coquitlam and we sort of, well, why did you leave? And they had issues. But I think by going out on an ongoing basis and being proactive in our relationship with our existing business, we'll also turn around and attract businesses, because word of mouth will say, well, you know, Coquitlam really tries to deal with us, tries to be involved with us. And I think that's a step in this way of attracting other businesses. And it helps us, I think, whenever I see your roles, is understanding businesses' needs and to working with the city departments to change policies to make businesses more friendly here and understanding their role. In the world economy, though, that I believe that what I want to see from your job also is to be out there letting people know, all those businesses know that Coquitlam's here. How you do that, that's what you're going to be, your specific talent. But we can't sit here and wait for people to come. We have to go out and make that contact, bring those people here, let them know that Coquitlam's open for business, and we need that economic. I think we need some information, I think has been mentioned also, but I think we need your business cards to have with us to hand out to people when we talk about people in business that, hey, this is our economic development manager, you need to get in touch with him because he'll help you make it work in Coquitlam. And that's what I want to see your role is, helping businesses stay here and have businesses make it work, that they can locate here and make it work so we can get those jobs. Because remember, it's all about increasing the jobs in Coquitlam. That's what I look at our economic development process. And I think this is a good start. I think economic development is a multi-year program. I think some things take a couple of years before you start to see the real fruit of it. But I'm strongly in support of the direction that we're going. I just want to make sure that we are making sure that you are always trying to step out and attract, go and find that businesses to bring here. But good start. Thank you.
Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. I just want to, I guess, punctuate what Councillor Reid said about the Crane site, for example. And I think I would like to see that as part of your looking ahead in 2010. I know that we talked about it from a land use perspective, and we've decided that it's going to stay current zoning. And here's a tangible piece that would be really a sort of, I think, a feather in our collective caps if we could find a really good business use for that piece of land, and it would certainly indicate that this is the right direction. So I think it's one of those tangible pieces that would be really nice to sort of see some action on, that would give us some real confidence that this is the right direction. It's just a suggestion to staff.
Okay, I've got a couple. You know, I think what you need in your office is about a 4-inch bouncing pad on each wall. No, seriously, when, you know, because some things that you're mentioning, I know that with the way council's going and the way different directions, that you'll be bouncing off the wall quite often, you know. So I think, you know, when you mention Chamber of Commerce, I don't think for 1 minute the Chamber of Commerce will get you any help as far as business. Tourism, yes. But you know what, there's a great big split in the Chamber of Commerce right now, you know, just on the HST. You know, there's a lot of restaurants belong to it, they're totally opposed to it. The other ones are for it. So, you know, I don't know where you're going to go with that one. But, you know, when you're talking about working with the Millardville Committee of Redevelopment, 4 years from now, you'll have what you have today. So you need to go into your office and bounce off that wall a couple times. You know, I mean this, because you know what? It's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen, because that's not the way you'd go to redevelop Millardville. Okay? You know, and festivals are here to stay, and I don't know what kind of business you're going to get at the festivals. You know, Councilor Reid mentioned that that you put a new road to Whistler from just down the street in here, and it's 6 miles, Whistler from here. And I remember then the MLA for in Ottawa, not in Ottawa, in Victoria, for the Liberal Party. He said there's no way you could put that road through there, it'd be expensive, you couldn't do it, and cannot be done, impossible. And then here, just about 3-4 years ago, he's now singing this song of how well it could do if you put it through. So I don't know what kind of role you play on there. And on a Crane site, it's nice for us to try, as a council, to address that piece of property. But we have no right to address that piece of property. It's not ours. It is privately owned. The developer came forward in here. Today, here a week ago, he phoned me. He says, how many units can I get on that site before I have to have the secondary access? 50 units, 75 units, 100 units, 125? I can't get that answer. So here's where you're going. You know, they know that the secondary access has to be put through. You know, so, you know, there's also has to be movement on our part to make your life a little easier. And I don't think that you can have an easy life with some things that you may want to do, be able to do. And visiting businesses is fine. What are they going to tell you? Who are you going to get into this community as a business? You know, there's Go West came into Coquitlam from North Vancouver. And they're very disappointed that they moved from North Vancouver to here for many reasons. So, you know, I wish you all the luck in the world. But I'll tell you, you need that bouncing pads, and I'll tell you, the sooner you get a work order and get them in there, the better off you'll be. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Okay, there's a recommendation on the floor.
Move.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's the last formal item on this afternoon's agenda.
That's it?
That is it.
Okay, we stand adjourned.
Hey, what time is